Welcome back to the BookEnds YouTube channel. I'm James McGowan.
I'm Jessica Faust.
We are literary agents who have taken our popular blog to YouTube to discuss all things publishing. Today we are giving a peel back the curtains to discuss the process after a book leaves our hands, right? So after your agent submits your book, where does it go? What happens?
Yeah,
what are the other folks doing?
Why is it taking so long?
Yeah, no, pretty much. That's what this question is about. Why is it taking so damn long? Okay, so once your agent submits your book, you're feeling in the dark, right? Like you're just waiting, and waiting is tough. So we are going to give you some information to arm yourself on why you're waiting and where it goes from here.
And what you should be doing.
And what you should be doing. Well, let's get that right off the bat. What you should be
doing.
Doing. My best piece of advice is to completely, absolutely, 100% forget about it. Just pretend like it's not even out there. You will drive yourself utterly mad if you don't. So just forget about it. Go off, write your next book, go on a vacation, read something, do your work, your real job, whatever. Don't worry about this book.
Yeah, and also be aware, I think, of some time frames. I think being aware of how long the process takes can help. My suggestion, I really think that, 4 weeks easily before you really even begin to hear something. I mean, sometimes you'll hear earlier, and obviously all these great things can happen instantly, but typically I think it's better to have some real extended time frames so that it is easier to forget, because you don't even have to think about it for at least 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, I also just want to side note, I want to say that I said go back to your real job before, which writing may be your real job. I respect that if it is. I meant like if you have a day job, do your day job.
Well, or whatever it is you do during the day, because you have some sort of job, right?
Right. And if it's writing, then you go back to that. But I just wanted to clarify that and not offend anybody who's a full-time writer. But no, really, so that could be a great way to do it. Putting in your calendar, 2 months from now, hey, where's my book at? And it's just completely off your plate, and you worry about it in 2 months if you haven't heard something. But you will drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
So, okay, so now you know what you should be doing. But let me tell you. Go ahead.
I also think you should probably start writing in your next book.
Yeah.
But not without
speaking to your agent.
Yes. Don't just start randomly writing your next book without talking to your agent about what would be the best book for you to start writing next. Especially if it's a novel, because you will be investing a ton of time without consulting with your business partner, really. Yeah, there's nothing worse than finding out a client has been spending all this time writing the next book that we know we can't sell. Yeah, or it's just a complete pivot too. That would be useful to know and help guide you in what you should be writing. Right, exactly. Okay. Okay, so now you're off writing somewhere. In the back of your mind, we're going to tell you everything that's actually happening. So, like Jessica said, we send that to editors. They read it when they read it, right? Like they have a number of things that they're doing. They have a client list. They have other submissions. They have 1,000,005 meetings, just like the rest of us. They are doing a job, and they tend to actually read in their spare time or their free time. Yep. So it can take a while before they even get into that manuscript. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really believe that it's a minimum 2 weeks before an editor typically even thinks of opening the submission. Yeah. And now, again, like Jessica said, they could move faster if they're super excited, but that is, I would say, the exception, not the rule. If they're super excited and have some free time on their hands. Right. And I mean, just speaking about it from an agent's point of view, like we have a ton of queries in our inbox that we get super excited about too. That doesn't mean we can drop everything to read it. Yeah, it's funny when you're really, really excited about something, you realize you've had it for 3 weeks. Right. Right. So that's just probably going to be the biggest chunk of your waiting, is just getting responses, right? Yep. So if an editor reads it, doesn't love it, you will get a pass. You will start to have some sort of closure from folks, right? But it gets a little longer if an editor likes it. So if an editor really loves your submission, they have an extensive process on their side of things in order to get it from submission I love to submission I'm working with. And no, this can be slightly different depending on the publishing house and the policies and the editor and all sorts of different things. but this is sort of the standard of the steps that the editor has to go through. So you understand why it takes so long.
Right. The first thing is second reads, which, mind you, we just went through it with the first editor. They had to read it on their time. Now they need to find other people to read it on the other person's time. So second reads could take a couple of weeks, could take longer if necessary.
Yeah, and second reads are when they are getting other people to basically vouch for them and their belief in this book.
Right. Yeah. And it's reading a full manuscript. So it's not something that we can all just do overnight, right? Okay, so after that, after we get second reads and people are liking it just as much as we are, and the editor usually has to prepare some sort of pitch, right? To bring it to their team. Go ahead.
I mean, typically they're going to go off the pitch that we've sent them. We are hand delivered that, I hope. But yes, they still need to come up with a plan to pitch it to their team. And sometimes that involves research. I mean, I remember being an editor and going to Barnes and Noble and plopping myself down in front of the bookshelves and really researching what I wanted to pitch to my editorial team.
And as agents, we get it often too. We're like, hey, do you have a bio for this person? Has this person written anything else? Are they planning anything else? All of those questions might factor into how they pitch the client and the book too. So they are pulling together a pitch for their team that could have many different layers. Okay, now that pitch is done, now they have to wait for the next acquisition meeting, which is when the publishers' teams come together and decide if they're going to buy some new books, right? And they have to, you don't just call a meeting when you're ready for a book, right? These are regularly scheduled meetings. They have a ton of people. Sometimes they get canceled, rescheduled, moved. So we're waiting for that next one, getting on the schedule at an acquisitions meeting. If there's a lot on the schedule, you might have to wait till the next one.
Yeah.
Some publishers do them weekly, some do them bi-weekly. I know a couple smaller ones do them monthly. So you're juggling with that schedule of when can I get on, what is the soonest acquisition meeting I can get this into? And then you got to run the whole gamut of.
Yeah, so the acquisitions meeting can be super stressful. And I'm going to tell you this from experience because you're pitching the book. And now sometimes more second reads or the second reads will come up in the meeting. So sometimes I pitch the book and I might be told that sounds great, run with it. But more often than not, I might be told if I didn't already get second reads, you need second reads. And then the really terrible part is I, as an editor, have to wait a full week to come back to the editorial meeting to have people verbally critique my book. And they can be like, yes, this is amazing. Oh my gosh, jump on it, get it. Or they can skewer me and the book. And so as an editor, I really have to be committed to the book because I'm going to have to promote it to my colleagues.
Exactly. And I mean, it's not easy work, right? Especially when we are really invested in a book. It can be hard to hear sometimes. It can be, like you said, scary. It could be, I would probably be embarrassed. Like if somebody doesn't love it, it can be all of those conflicting feelings too. So
absolutely.
Okay, so now we're going with the everybody's loving your book train.
Yeah,
right? So,
you've been told to go ahead and offer, but
right. So now an editor has to run what's called a P&L.
Yeah,
statement.
profit and loss
Profit
report.
and loss, right.
Yeah.
So report, thank you. That word, I said statement, that word went out of my head.
Works. Either one works.
So basically this is, comp titles, all of how much do we think this book is going to sell? Really weighing that to know how much that we can offer.
Yeah, and this is based on obviously the comps that the publisher has. So they know sales of similar books and what they do. So it'll be based on that, but it'll also might be based on what information the marketing department and the sales department gives on what they think they can do with the book. So this is where the offer, the information on the offer is going to come from. How much they can offer as an advance, the royalties, all of those things that play into the money side of it is where this is where they're getting the information for the money side of it.
Yeah, and that's when things are like super official, right? Like they have to have all of their ducks in the row before they're sending an offer to the agent, because as your agent, we're gonna have a ton of questions. We're gonna have negotiations and counters and all of that stuff, and they have to be prepared for that part.
And even with once you run the numbers, most editors still have to get sort of a secondary approval. So you've gotten approval to basically run the numbers. Now you have to go back to your boss and they're going to tell you how much money they're going to give you to offer on this book. So it's not that I get to run the numbers and then decide, it's that I'm given now permission based on the numbers to go forward and take that next step.
Right. And that next step is officially sending your agent an offer. This, we would love to publish it. These are the terms that we would love to publish it under, when we'd like to publish it, how we'd like to publish it, all that fun stuff. And we've done a ton of videos, I think, on what an agent does in this space, but really this could also take a couple of weeks to really nail down before you have, okay, we're moving forward. We could be, you know, working on the negotiations, which could take a while, having responses from others who are considering it. If it goes to an auction, running an auction, all of those things could really elongate this process. There's no, this will be done by X. So it makes it a little longer.
It does. And also throughout this process with the editors going through the second reads, they're preparing their pitch, the acquisitions meeting, we don't always know this is happening. Sometimes the editor will reach out, they'll want to know if it's still available. I'm going to bring it to my team. I'm getting second reads. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes we don't know until we either get the offer or they're going to give us the hint that the offer is coming. So don't assume that the minute the editor expresses interest, you know that. You don't always know that.
It's always fun when you get a surprise offer.
Ah, they're so fun.
They're my favorite.
I prefer it to knowing everything the editor's doing, because then it alleviates all that stress I'm feeling when I'm waiting for the editor.
Putting it on my calendar.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we hope this was a helpful peek behind the curtain. I know it was a lot of information, but that's usually like the norm of what's happening after we submit your book and things start progressing. So bookmark it, save it for when this starts to happen with your book. Fingers crossed it's soon. And we look forward to seeing you back here next time.
Bye.